Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
From the Fifth Quarter Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, you are listening to High School Hoops with our hosts, Steve Collins and Jake Steger. All right, welcome to High School Hoops, episode 60. Welcome back, Coach. You had your week respite.
I did.
You did. You and I were both scrambling last week. Let me give a big shout out to our two sponsors. First of all, Dr. Dish. If you want these podcasts to keep going, make sure you call them. I'm working on seeing if they're going to sponsor again next year, so make sure you do that. That's the first thing. Second thing is go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. I can't imagine a better time. I'm actually thinking, I haven't told Jake this, I'm actually thinking of closing the doors just because it's getting so big. It's getting to the point where I can't help people anymore, and I want to be able to help people. So if you're thinking of getting in, I'd get in soon before I close the doors.
That means you're running a successful site, Coach.
Well, yeah, I think people are getting use out of it, I think. I'm hoping. All right, so episode 60. What do we got on 60?
Well, first, if you see me drinking my flavored water or my cheeseburger, I just got done coaching a soccer game, so I'm trying to fit all this stuff in. I'm off tomorrow. I want to watch the Packers tonight a little bit, so I've had a 4-day week.
Why are you off tomorrow?
Because
we're off on a Sunday. Why?
It's like a in-service a day for us to have because we've just had parent-teacher conferences.
Oh, okay.
And so how our school does it is that if we utilize like nighttime, we can have Friday off as well. So we had 2 days where we stayed later. So we had off Friday and then we got off Monday.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome.
That's really good.
And a nice long weekend. So now I'm going to have the Sunday with no anxiety of getting ready for school tomorrow.
I know. That's
that feeling, that little pit in your stomach. It's like, the day off from basketball, you're still thinking about basketball. I don't have to worry about anything tomorrow. So I'm actually going into my daughter's classroom tomorrow and doing a read aloud. So that'll be my day tomorrow. But the question, let's stay on task because the season, people are getting in the midst of their season. We have several people have asked questions on our Facebook page. And so one of the questions was, how do you establish your offense the first 2 weeks of practice?
That's a great question. I mean, so we're kind of tweaking our offense. So if anyone's listening to this, better come scout us. I think it really has to be broken into small little pieces. So we have literally after tryouts, we have broken it down into small pieces where we're teaching them, we're doing small-sided games. We're teaching them specific moves or specific things that we want them to be able to do in the offense. And then we're bringing it back up into the entire offense. I think the problem, especially with a lot of youth coaches, is they just throw it in there. If they're running dribble drive or read and react, whatever they're running, and they just throw it in and they don't break it into – you got to break it into small skill sets. So I think, and we've talked about this, I think it's really important to map out your season, especially the first couple of weeks, of what do you need in for your first opponent. And you definitely need a basic offense that probably can work against both man and zone. But establishing it is important, especially if you're a fast or slow-paced team. You have to establish that quickly and often. Some of the teams I've had, literally practice was a track meet. I would be tired after an hour and 20 minutes because it was. And then I've also had other teams where we just worked on setting screens and grinding and, you know, taking 35 seconds off the clock every time. So I think those things are extremely, what you establish early, this you for having 40 kids in your classroom, you can vouch for this. Those things that you establish early on the offensive end are going to stick with you for a long time unless you have to break those habits. But how do you do it?
Well, I think first off, you have to look at the three components of a good offense, and you have to explain that to your players off. So no matter what you do offensively, you have to have really good spacing. You have to be able to have player movement and ball movement in everything that you do. I think if you can focus on that early in the season, you know, the perfect screening and all that stuff, it's not going to happen.
No.
If you need the guys to do that early, I think no matter offense that you're running, I think those are the three things you've got to constantly look at, almost like a rubric. You know, are we doing these things within our offense? And then you try to better those as you continue on throughout the season. You know, I think you made a great point is establishing your tempo. You know, that's huge. Because it is just it's trying to figure out what kind of team you're going to be early in the season.
You have to figure that out early too, and it's like you got to establish it with them, and it's a mental part.
And then you got to be careful how much you front load. You know, are you doing too many sets? Are you going 5 or 6 different offenses? And sometimes it's easier to be simple. I like to be very simple offensively and more complex defensively. And that's just been something that I've learned from years past is that, you know, sometimes it's really about getting a lot of shots off and finishing and keeping it simple offensively and then making defense a little bit more complicated in regards to making it harder on the opponent.
Defense is going to be farther along early too.
Right. I think also then designing breakdown drills within your offense, you know, just don't choose breakdown drills because you think they're awesome. They have to be relatable to what you're doing offensively. So you can constantly build on what you're doing.
Like everything has to have. If you're setting a lot of flare screens, you got to do things with flare screens. If you're setting back screens, if you're setting, you know, down whatever, maybe you're not screening, maybe you're working on dribble, drive, and rotate, all those things. You have to build that in quickly and fast. And we're just talking, and that I'm just referring to the half court part. If you're thinking tempo, oh my God, it's like that takes months unless they've been doing it since they're in 3rd grade. The tempo thing is a harder thing. It's easier to slow them than then speed them up. Right.
And one thing that I notice is that a lot of times people like to start things. I like to do things out of a side, out of balance, or out of inbounds. It seems like sometimes they just want to restart everything, like taking the ball on the top of the key. There's never in a game where you start into your offense with just starting in the top of the key.
Ooh, I love that. That's true.
And so often I think people make that mistake of constant grinding in the half court. All right, let's go from a side out of bounds play into our offense. Side out of bounds play into our offense.
Here's the question I have for you, and I've thought about this too. It's like, how often do we really get side out of bounds into offense or underneath into offense? You know, how many possessions in a game?
It's like, I think it's really about the progression game. I used to love to do progressions. All right, so we're going to go 4 or 5 minutes hard or 4 or 5 lengths down the court. Take a free throw, do it again. Process, do it again. Do it again, do it again. Because I just don't think you should constantly be stuck in the half court because I think it becomes monotonous. It doesn't become authentic, and it's too easy. It becomes too easy, and kids don't cut. They just stand. They don't move. It's just not a good way to really build your offense. You want to try to do things out of the full court into your offense.
Yeah, and I think you hit a point too early that spacing part is really hard for them.
Right.
It is really hard for them to get that spacing down to truly understand what's going on.
And really, the spacing starts on the initial break to your area on the offensive side of the floor. You know, are our guys getting wide? You know, and it's hard to establish if you're constantly doing it in the half court. You know, guys are, you get them wide and stay wide and go into that, and then start to take things away. People get comfortable in things that are happening. You know, if you're a pack line defense, maybe once in a while you got to try to go against a defense that's going to play more up the line. Start to challenge the defense to give them different looks, or go five people on your offense and 6 guys on defense. Make it a little bit harder. Add some trapping. All those things. And be really good at 1 or 2 things early on, and then if you can do that, then you can go on to the next level. But you
right.
gotta,
Those are your building blocks. Those are your building blocks.
Slow to go fast.
Yeah, I agree. All right, anything else on that? That's great. I think that don't overcomplicate things. I think is one of the big takeaways too. You know, you don't need what you're going to be running 3 months from now in that first 2 weeks. You need the basics, and you need to pound the basics so that they learn to read things within your offense.
All right, Coach. Question of the day is: you're at a away game. What's the one thing you always buy at a concession stand?
I don't do it. I'm a big blow pop person, so that's for volleyball. That's definitely a thing. But one of my assistants always buys the opposing school's popcorn, and then we have a running scale of who has the best popcorn.
I like that. I like that.
So we always say, I always ask, like, where does this rank? You know, it's like so John always buys one, and then we kind of rank the popcorn. Because
I would say the only thing I ever buy at a concession stand is usually a pick-me-up. So either a soda or something that get me going if I'm dragging. Other than that, I never tend to buy anything because my stomach is too sick. And
the only good thing is, like, we usually sometimes have leftover hot dogs. They're so good. They're disgusting. If you do any sort of research on what's in a hot dog.
Yeah, but hot dogs in the grills are really good too.
Yeah, there's something about sitting in that water for 3 hours and then eating it tastes good.
Yeah,
it's so bad. I don't remember last time we bought hot dogs in this house, but I had to basically Heimlich both of our kids on hot dogs. I did. I mean, it was like projectile. Yeah, it's like a huge choking hazard.
So in the end, don't eat hot dogs either.
Yeah, don't eat hot dogs. All right,
live a longer life.
All right, till next week, Coach.
Yep.
Couple weeks. Countdown.
Yep.
All right,
sounds
bye.
good. Bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.